is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 84. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E, a.k.a. E. James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew, EC, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. The Fashionista, a.k.a. Chili Willie, a.k.a. Joe E. Chestnut, a.k.a. Eon Stockel. E. Midweek here in Austin. I can't say that I have completely shaken off the feeling that we had on Sunday night. Like, still a little bit of a poor taste in my mouth from Austin FC's performance on Sunday, but hump day here. We've got our road trip up to Frisco looming. So I'm starting to get pretty excited for that. How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be a bad taste in our mouths until we kick off for Frisco up there, which you mentioned will be in attendance. I'm looking forward to that. Should be fun and exciting. Like Papa Bruin said, that last game is one that's you can't really just move on from, and they got to have a nice, outlet in the locker room. We didn't. Maybe you and I should just fight each other, try to get this out, and go from there. But yeah, no, I'm ready to talk some Austin FC, baby. Always ready to talk some Austin FC. We got some interesting news. Obviously, It's rivalry week coming up here. Some stuff on the line, y'all. Like, this isn't your average game. So I am getting a little excited, getting a little butterflies, but we got a ways to go.
Yeah, no question. So we will preview here in a second the FC Dallas match. We'll talk some Austin FC news. We will, of course, hit on last business day, SKC2 coming to town this Friday. Maybe touch on the Open Cup semifinals, which are happening tonight. And then very excited to have, I think, our first returning guest. Actually, that's not true because the North End Pirates have been on multiple times. But Tom Bogert, going to join us. And for those watching on the YouTube, I think he's going to be audio only today. So you won't get to see Tommy's legendary mustache. But very excited that he's making the time for us once again. Let's jump into this match preview here. FC Dallas, of course, have a game in hand on Austin right now. They are sitting in the 10th position. But I believe on a points per game basis, if that's how we were organizing the standings right now, Austin would be 10th. I think we touched on that on the last pod. Of course, the history between these two rivals. The first season for Austin, 3 Dallas wins. And then last season, the 2 regular season draws and the big Austin FC Western Conference semifinal win at home, 2-1. That was our first victory ever over FC Dallas. And then so far this season, we have played twice. The first of the 2 meetings so far did not count towards the Copa Tejas standings because of the unbalanced schedule between the 3 Texas teams. But that first game, a 1-0 loss at Q2 Stadium, that was the Rodney Red Disc game. Jesus holding his jersey up there in the south end. And then the big response against a shorthanded Dallas team as well, but the 3-0 victory for Austin. That one did count towards the Copa Tejas standings, as will this game coming up on Saturday. As I mentioned, Dallas currently in 10th place with that game in hand on Austin, 30 points from their 23 matches and a -1 goal differential. And of course, not much has changed since we last checked in on our rivals to the north. Jesus Ferreira leading them in goals with 10. Bernard Camungo now second with 3. So that tells you just how important Jesus Ferreira is to FC Dallas and what they do, especially on the offensive end. Again, 10 goals. They have 25 on the season. So, keeping up with Jesus or trying to stymie him, which Austin has had trouble with throughout the history between these 2 clubs, that's obviously paramount, is knowing where he's at all times.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what's going to come down to what's going to get the result here is which 10 is able to impact the game more. We saw last game, Lewin outplayed Seba, and if that happens here and Jesus outplays Seba here, we could be looking at a loss. But you mentioned they struggle to score. They have a hard time scoring. Jesus almost has half their goals this season. The Kamunga kid coming on has looked great. He's brought a lot of energy. He's fast to the ball, and he's got a nose for the goal. But again, you have to be able to stop Jesus and prevent him from being in those very dangerous situations where he's in between the levels of the defense. He's behind the midfield, but he's ahead of the center back and the back line, and then he uses that space to get runs in behind the back line, which we saw in that 1-0 game where he netted the game winner. So it is absolutely priority number one to know where he is at all times. You got to have a body on him. You got to be physical with him. You got to touch him up a little bit and let him know that we're here. Now, Matt Hedges used to be with FC Dallas. So he should have a bit of insight on, the nuances of Jesus's game that make him such a spectacular player. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good challenge, particularly for the two in the midfield, which I hope once we get into lineups here is Alex Ring. And with Hedges behind him, I feel like we have a good chance at being effective in our efforts to slow him down.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with you there. And of course, Dallas made a little bit of a run there in the League's Cup, advanced out of their group, and then beat Mazatlan 2-1 at home. And then, of course, the 4-4 thriller, losing in PKs there to the eventual champions Inter Miami. But they were struggling mightily before the break. And, of course, a lot of that had to do with Jesus being out at the Gold Cup with the national team. But if you look at, and doing this on the fly here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, their previous 9 matches in the league coming up to that League's Cup break, 7 points for FC Dallas. So just to illustrate how much they were struggling coming into that break, this is a team that scores 1.09 goals per match. And I think I forget the outlet that I was looking at, XGs per team for like home and away. I think they average right around 1 in terms of an XG at home. So like you mentioned, this is a team that struggles to score, but fairly stout defensively when they are fully healthy. And Austin FC certainly knows that well. So looking at this team that obviously getting more healthy with Paul Arriola, Paxton Pomykal, guys like that, getting back into form, and then some additions in the transfer window. Liam Frazier was added. I believe he's like a central kind of defensive midfielder. I don't think his profile looks like the type of player that's going to be a game changer. But they certainly brought in a name with Iser Iralamendi, and I think I'm butchering that. You have to go over to Moon Tower because I know Landon's very familiar with him as a Basque player, when he did his study abroad program some years ago. Aramendi, 14 seasons over in Spain, 13 of them in La Liga, and 12 of those 14 seasons in his career with Real Sociedad. Spent 2 seasons with Real Madrid about 10 years ago now. So this is a guy who has not played a ton. He did have 24 La Liga appearances this past season with 13 starts, just over 1,000 minutes, but did not come close to those totals in the 3 seasons prior to that one combined. Just 17 appearances from 2019 to 2022, and only 1 goal contribution in the last 4 seasons. So again, coming to MLS, certainly a step down, maybe a few steps down. But this isn't like some guy who was just ripping it up overseas, at his, I think he's 33. I think he's going to be certainly going to make an impact on this Dallas team. I just don't know if we're going to see that impact necessarily this coming Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he profiles as somebody, the classic MLS veteran coming over from Europe who's, aged out a bit, no longer playing. So he is going to have an impact because he's going to be not a professional, but, someone you can rely on, someone who has the in-game experience, that a veteran presence. And this Dallas club, like you mentioned, he's more of a defensive kind of mid. They just are struggling to score. And the production from Velasco and Arriola, I know, is something that's been frustrating for their fans. The last I saw Velasco was when they were playing Messi, and that's his hero. I'm pretty sure he's got the back tat, right?
Messi tattooed on his back, right?
He's got
or something like that.
Yeah, he's got the Roger Stone tattoo.
Yeah.
So he played really well that game. He looked awesome, but there was a little more going on there. So hopefully he can come back down to earth and the level that he was playing at prior to their Leagues Cup advancement. But again, this is going to come down to who can get this first goal. If we can get this first goal, man, I gotta feel good about our chances. If we let it up, you can't feel good about it at all. But 25 goals is it's like we looked at it before we got in the show. We're like, and we've known how much we've struggled to score this season, and we're 10 goals clear of them. Now with a game in hand as well, but still.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be imperative to find Jesus, get a body on him, get this first lead out of the gate. Again, we will win the Copa Tejas with a draw. Yeah. And getting a draw in Dallas is nothing to scoff at for sure. And then you look at it from the wider lens, the impact on playoff positioning here. They're trailing us. They have a game in hand. We want to stay ahead of them. This is how we can do it. So a lot is on the line here. And I know that we haven't really shaken off that loss yet, but I hope the boys have, because there's nothing they can do about it now. And we got to go to Frisco and put that behind us.
Yeah, no question. And you brought up Copa Tejas. So obviously, we've touched on this kind of throughout the season, but what are your feelings here on Copa Tejas? Because obviously there's still some people that I think align with certainly what I think about it. And that's, I want this trophy. I understand that it's not an official trophy. It's not a league trophy. There's only 3 teams competing for it, etc. But I want everything that we can get our hands on, supporters trophy or not. So how are you feeling about that? I saw some people saying or asking the question, does winning the Copa Tejas help somebody like Josh Wolff in his standing with the fan base or the club, or does it help the morale of the locker room? What are your general thoughts on? There's no question that in that locker room, this game means more, and we heard it on the team, the video the team released after the FC Dallas match, the most recent one, right, where Josh was saying they came in and embarrassed you in your house, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that extra juice is there for them. But what are your thoughts on the trophy that's on the line? No matter what the trophy is for, it's still something that I want as a fan.
Yeah, personally, I definitely want it. I know that I'm all for having bragging rights over those other two. And look, it's been a long season for the guys. We've had some disappointing showings in cup games, and being able to win something I know will be a good boost for that locker room, however small it may be. And again, it's still a huge game in regards to the Western Conference standings and where we're going to be, where we're going to end up by the end of the season. So I'm all for it. I think that we got to go after this, got to go get this. I want it. I think that the boys are definitely going to want it. And there's always a little extra juice here, when you're playing a rival like this. And you look at, the trophies that they give out in regard to college football rivalries, right? They're storied, but they have to start somewhere. And this is the genesis of this Copa Tejas trophy that we have, and we are being able to participate in. So I'm always trying to go after it. In regard to how some fans may feel about it and that it doesn't really matter, that's fine with me. I can't really, I've made my case there. If that's not how they feel, then that's not how they feel. And if you're thoroughly positioned in the Wolff out camp, I don't think winning a Copa Tejas is going to bring you around in any sort of way, especially if you're also on record saying that even if we won MLS Cup, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't change your mind.
So I just think that, I don't think it's going to sway anybody either way. It's more so, what type of meltdown is there in the spaces. I'm for it. We got to go get this thing. And I know it'll be impactful for the boys. And particularly after that tough loss at St. Louis. Yeah.
And of course, coming back and playing a week from tonight at Q2 against Seattle, that's going to be a quick turnaround as well. So getting even a point here and bringing home that trophy for the supporters, I think, like you said, would be a morale boost for everybody involved. Anybody involved in the franchise and anybody that's a fan of this franchise. And at worst, you don't care about it, and we get a point or 3 points, and that should be encouraging for everybody who cheers on this team. Let's talk about us for a second here. The club did just post, as we went to record here, did post some pictures from training. And the most important thing that you notice here is you get multiple photos of Leo Väisänen in training, full training again, right? We knew Josh told us that he played about 12 minutes of 11 on 11 last week in practice. So ramping up. I still think it's hopeful at best that he's on the bench this coming Saturday. I am not holding out for that. Do you think we see Leo on the bench this Saturday?
I don't. I think it's the Seattle game where you see him, but still very encouraging. And getting him back is going to be huge for these last couple of games here, and hopefully for some playoff games, because like you mentioned, he's our CB1. He's our best defender back there, and we need him back badly. Yeah.
And I think also, obviously, a lot has been made of Julio Cascante's poor performance this past Sunday. And I was talking with some folks this morning, and the thought kind of crossed my mind that I feel like as soon as you put Julio with a center back that we perceive to be the CB1 over him, whether it's Matt Beasler or Ruben Gabrielson, and now Matt Hedges, because we haven't seen a ton of Julio and Leo out there together. But now in Matt Hedges' first start, Julio has a stinker, and it's like, man, it's almost like Julio has to be the CB1, and then we kind of gloss over some of those mistakes. Potentially, yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of, thinking out loud, but it just, I don't know. It's been a tough couple days for him, at least in terms of the fan reaction, and rightfully so, I think, to what was a bad night for him.
Yeah, he had an awful night. And like we said earlier on the last pod, he might be better suited in an off the bench kind of role when Leo and Matt are both ready to go and healthy. But either way, it provides us options. It provides us, maneuverability back there, which we need, and we haven't really had all season.
Well, I'm excited to hopefully knock on wood, because until Leo's back, there's no guarantee we can get all three of those guys healthy together. But if we do get to that point, and hopefully by this time next week against Seattle, I'm very excited, not just for Julio to maybe be in that bench role, but to have that rotation of three there and be able to say, hey, if Matt Hedges isn't giving us his best after 65 minutes, bring in Julio or bring in Leo and just have fresh legs back there, which we did have through most of the first two seasons. Talent discussion aside, we always had a Romagna or a Kip or somebody like that to bring in when necessary. So to have that third guy be somebody with the quality of Julio, again, not making the argument that he's an all-star or anything, but if he is off the bench for you, that feels like pretty good depth for this league.
That's a great depth piece. And it's also a depth piece that provides a very unique skill set. We know what he brings to the offensive side of the ball. It's just the defensive side that's really lacking right now. So I think it's a great depth piece to have, a great option to have. And what he provides on the offensive side of the ball really can't be understated. We talked about it, the boost we saw as a team in regard to our goals per game when he was in there, and just his contributions from the center back position alone. So like you said, we're not saying he's an all-star. I'm not saying by any means that he's some sort of slouch who I don't want to see in a full rotation with our other two guys. And then you throw in Kippy.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing too, is I would like to see Kip Keller on the bench this weekend, because I don't think we're going to see Leo, right? We talked about it on Sunday, right? Both of us want to see Alex Ring start in that defensive midfield this Saturday, unless you've had a change of heart, and we just can't. You really pigeonhole yourself, or I think we did on Sunday. By not having Kip there, you force yourself to play Alex Ring at center back when Matt Hedges is cramping and has to come out. And then you force yourself into Johan Valencia when you're trying to score goals, rather than having Alex there available to help out more offensively, where we know he's not the most prolific goal scorer, but in terms of his creation, passing, both on the ground and in the air, he's good at that. So I want to see that, and I want to see him in the midfield for the physicality of this game, the rivalry type nature. And this is not a team that's going to press the shit out of us. So again, the need for a guy like Owen Wolff and the skills that he brings in that regard, I think are less necessary here on Saturday. And Alex is probably fresher at the end of the day.
Yeah, it has to be Alex for me, this game. It has to be. The game is going to be physical. It's going to be a grinded out kind of game. We look at their goal score. We look at ours. It's going to be a physical, grinded out, hard-nosed, fought game. And you look at the post-game comments from last week, and multiple times the response to getting scored on was brought up. Mm-hmm. How do we respond? How do we do this? And if you go back to the beginning of the season, and when Alex lost the captain's band, there has been a leadership void with Seba as the captain. He's not a vocal guy. He doesn't have that presence where he's really on people like that. You know, he does his thing. He's talking to guys and doing that, but it's not at the same level as Alex. And it's a bit contradictory to me to be saying those things and then leaving out the fact that Alex isn't out there, because, I mean, regardless of his skill set or not, he was our unquestioned leader out there with Ruben in the past and Stuver, obviously. But we need him, and he's going to have to be physical with Jesus and know where he is at all times. And that's something that I totally trust him to be able to do. And like I said, when we were previewing this match just moments ago, that's what it's going to come down to for me is which 10 is able to put their mark on this game and help their team to victory.
So looking elsewhere in the lineup, obviously we had Gyasi Zardes, Emiliano Rigoni available off the bench. And for what Josh said was 30 minutes, could maybe stretch them to 45. I think it's probably foolish to assume that either guy is ready for 90 minutes just 6 days later. Although that's certainly not out of the question. I'm not expecting it. But do you expect either or both of those guys to start? Or do you think we see something similar to what we saw on Sunday? And again, keeping in mind, we don't have any updates on Maxi Urruti's concussion protocol and where he's progressed in that. There is media availability at St. David's Performance Center on Thursday after practice. So right around lunchtime, we should be getting some quotes, some info out of there. But sitting here on Wednesday evening, what are your thoughts on kind of the rest of the lineup, in the attack there?
Oh, well, G much more likely to start given the Maxi situation. Also, I think the drop-off between Gyasi and Maxi is much more violent than it is when whether we start Memo over Rigoni on that left side, or even Finley, or whatever combination it may be. The drop-off is much more significant between Maxi and Gyasi. So G much more likely, but I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them in the starting lineup. And if we go back to the St. Louis game, as difficult as it is, there were some positives when we had our best players out there. We were generating a lot of big chances. We scored 3 goals in that second half. We talked about it in the last pod. Over 3 expected goals on some models and 7 big chances created, all in the second half. And that's when we had those guys out there on the pitch. Now, granted, we were in a much more attacking formation. They were pushed back, but still, there's something there. So I think getting both of them is not out of the question. I'd be really satisfied with a 60-minute performance out of both of those, Rigoni and Gyasi. And then depending on game script, you can bring Bruin in and try to go 2-striker, whatever it may be. Or you look to see the health of Maxi and if he can get in there for that stretch run where he can be effective in his heavy pressure nature.
Yeah. And then we're assuming Lee McGowie, right? No Lukovic.
Yes,
I know you're hoping for that. You got fingers crossed.
It's obvious. I don't gotta hope for it. It's Lima. And Johnny. So it's Lima, Hedges, Julio, Johnny, Danny, Alex. I want Memo. Okay, I'll go Memo. I'm gonna go Memo on the left. And Rigoni with the super sub.
Finley. Oh, Finley. Okay, gotcha.
Finley on the right, and then Seba G.
So here's a question, something that I was thinking about yesterday. And I think just from the small sample size we had on Sunday and the wild game script that unfolded, We saw them go to that 3-back on offense where Johnny G was filling in on the left wing on offense and sprinting back to be part of that back line on D. Rigoni came in and played on the right.
Yep.
Is he exclusively still Ethan Finley's backup? Like, do you think Memo is the starter on the left?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think that there's a clear-cut answer there yet. Just given Rigoni's health status, like you can't really evaluate him at full scale because you want 90 minutes out of your DP $2 million guy.
Yeah.
And again, like the situation we talked about with Julio, Hedges, and Leo, I'm fine with that 3 rotation there and getting those guys rotated on either side, wherever it may be. I was pretty satisfied with Memo's play. Now, it did look a little disjointed with the rest of the team, but I thought individually he played really well. And he could have had, I mean, he was inches away from a cross earlier in the first half by putting us up 1. And then obviously the incredible save by Berkey there in the second half. He really had some chances. So I was encouraged with his play. I'm fine seeing him start on the left and then get Rigoni in at 60, or if we're down and we're trying to push, bring him in a little sooner.
Makes sense to me. Anything else you want to add before we just get to our score predictions here?
I guess one thing I am really looking at is the mention of from the last game after the presser with Josh saying that we want to try to slot Seba in underneath that double striker because it was creating a lot of opportunities and chances for us. So I hope, and I don't anticipate that we're going to be going to that right away in any sort of situation. But in a break in case of emergency situation, I'm okay with Papa Bruin out there, getting the 2 out there and then running Seba beneath them and allowing him to get into space. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. I already mentioned it's Jesus versus Seba for me. We need Alex out there. We need him to be physical with Jesus, and you got to know where he is at all fucking times. If we take him out of this game, you got to feel good about your chances walking away with at least 1 point.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, how much is Austin FC winning by? Because I don't imagine this is where you predict an Austin FC draw or loss here in the Copa Tejas clincher.
No. Look, I think it's going to be a slow game, and the team that scores first is going to win. I'm going to say Austin gets on the board first, and we pull out a 1-0 win there in Frisco in a rivalry game that they're going to be up for. They're going to have a little more butterflies, a little more jitters as well. So I'm there, 1-0 bounce back game from Stuver.
Yeah, I was going to say a shutout would be huge.
This is the team to get it against. This is the club to get it against. So hopefully the defense can do Brad some favors and
exactly
and be on their P's and Q's.
Yeah. Yep. And we just don't, Stuver can pull it back. Just a check down, right? We don't need the Hail Mary at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
Check down, that's it. I'm going to go a draw here. I'm going to go 1-1. I do think it is somewhat of a low-scoring game, to your point. It is just super tough for me, the way this team has been playing since the Leagues Cup break. Because obviously we went into the Leagues Cup break playing quite well over the previous month or so, results-wise, at least. But giving up, 12 goals in the last 3 matches? And I know some of them, right, the weird fucking free kick against Juarez and then the freebie that Stu gave up at the end last game. But still, the defense has been a sieve. And it's hard for me to say clean sheet here, as much as I would love to say it. So 1-1 for me, 1-0 for E. And either result would bring home the Copa Tejas for the second straight year. So let's get it done, boys. And excited to be up there in Frisco, only for the game. No other reason to be excited to be in Frisco.
Never been.
Other Austin FC news here. I guess one thing I did notice from this post of pictures, the practice photo dump that the club just posted, is Hector Jimenez out there in long sleeves. What a wild boy. I don't know how. I wouldn't make it. I would not make it.
That's that reminds me of when, remember, it was years and years ago. If anyone gets this deep cut, do you remember when Martin Lawrence was running around California in a sweatsuit? Not Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence. And he passed out because it was 100.
No, I don't. That's too deep for me. It's too deep for me.
It was good.
I guess the only other thing to really touch on here was the academy took off, headed to the Netherlands to spend time training and learning at PSV's training ground. So we saw the academy do something similar, I believe, in the off season. I don't think it was over a year ago. So good to see, that partnership bearing some fruit there, even if it's not affecting the first team directly at this point. Really cool to see those young guys be able to have that experience and hopefully pick up a thing or two.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's exciting.
So real quick, we do have the Open Cup semifinals tonight. So just wanted to check in with you, see how you were feeling, if you had any takes on these two matches. You've got FC Cincinnati, again, a team on record pace, both in the Shield race, or Shield standings rather, and at home. Historically good home team so far this year in the league. Took a little bit of a step back there in Leagues Cup play, and probably going to take a step back tonight with Inter Miami coming to town. Inter Miami are just slight favorites here, E. I mean, do you see anything happening here besides Miami advancing?
No. Good luck, Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Praying for you, man.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah. So that is certainly the one to tune into out of these two matches, if you can only catch one, in my opinion, because you've got that orange team hosting Real Salt Lake here in the other semifinal tonight in Houston. Going to be hot and humid, tough place to play if you're RSL. RSL plus 260 right now, E, if we were looking at the odds in Vegas. Houston, even odds to advance here in regulation. And again, in Open Cup, they do go to that extra 30 minutes or the extra time, right? The extra half hour if we're all tied up after 90. Who do you think comes out of that side of the bracket here between Houston and RSL?
Oh, you know who I'm picking here. RSL, baby. Look, Houston's a tough place to play. They've played really well there. RSL, I just think, has a different gear. I think that they have a different gear that they can get to solely based on the roster that they have. They have a good coaching staff. I really like their club, and I think it's going to be an RSL-Miami matchup, even though I wouldn't mind watching Miami just destroy Houston in the Cup final. And then we can be the only Texas team that hasn't lost to Messi.
Undefeated against Messi.
Undefeated against
Never
Messi.
lost.
Never lost.
Let's jump into last business day here quickly. Again, Sporting KC 2 coming to town. Austin FC 2 finally back home at the pitch this Friday, 8 p.m. kickoff there. SKC 2, it has been a minute since we saw this team. I believe that was the second, maybe third match of the season here for Austin FC 2. SKC 2 kind of right on our asses, like Tacoma's in between these two clubs, but SKC 2, 41 points from their 23 games. They are only 5 points back of FC 2 with 5 matches remaining. Sporting KC 2, in that first meeting, that was the, if you remember, the squeaky swing game, right? Yes. Where it's like that was my best description, the squeaky swing the entire time.
I was there, baby.
Yeah. That was a 1-1 draw in regular time. AOC scored the equalizer there, I believe, in the 73rd minute. And then Austin FC 2 coming up short in PKs 4-2 in that one. So brought home the point, looking to get all 3 here at home. This SKC 2 team can score in bunches. Over the last 6 weeks, they have a 7-1 win over Vancouver Whitecaps 2. They have a 6-1 win over Timbers 2 and a 4-0 win over Rapids 2. All 3 of those matches, though, at home, they are much more potent at home offensively, looking at the home road splits. They have 48 goals for on the season. That is third in all of Next Pro, so third out of 27 teams. 33 goals against, however, and on the road, just 14 points from their 11 road matches. That is right about middle of the pack, but their goal differential there on the road is even and plus 15 at home for SKC2. Austin, on the other hand, of course, is the best team at home in Next Pro. 29 points from their 11 home games and 25 goals for, just 4 conceded at home. So, I mean, we keep that up. I think we're going to have a fine finish to the season here for FC2. So looking at some of their players to watch, right? We always like to take a look at that. Pau Vidal. What's that?
So there's one big one.
Yeah, isn't Vidal the guy who played at Pitt with Val and Jackson? I think that was that because they had a guy. They had a Pitt Panther teammate on that. I think it's Lucas Rosa.
Vidal was at Villarreal.
Was he really?
Yeah, so I doubt he was at Pittsburgh.
I think it's Lucas Rosa because I remember those guys taking pictures together.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if So they graduated together.
Nice.
So Lucas Rosa, obviously Jackson Valti now in Colorado, but little Pitt Panther reunion here between Rosa and Val Noel. Rosa 2 goals on the season. Pau Vidal 10 goals. Alanis Vargas with 6. Ethan Bryant and Josh Cohen both with 5. So those are some of the goal scorers to be watching out for. Watching out for. And if you're just looking at FOTMOB ratings, which of course are not everything, but can help you help guide you, especially watching some of these next pro teams where there's not a ton out there. Luis Flores is the highest rated player, then Josh Cohn, then Nassim Kimdichi, Sebastian Cruz, Lucas Rosa, and on down. And I think the notable thing here, 9 players with a FOTMOB rating of 7 or more. If you look at it like the first team, I think we have like 3 guys with a 7 or higher FOTMOB rating average. So this is a quality side coming to the pitch on Friday. And I think this should be a really entertaining game for anybody that tunes in or, makes the trek out to the pitch and watches in person.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best offenses in the league versus the best defense. So we're going to see what gives here in this matchup. But they got plenty of dudes who can score. They have plenty of quality players. Obviously, you talked about the accumulation of goals that they have, but you just went through the stats there. And you see how many guys they have that are at least 5 goals. So they're an impressive club offensively. They concede goals, though. And, again, if we can get an early lead, a 1-0 lead, I trust our defense to see us home in that regard. And also, when we play at home, we're just a much better team. So we had a disappointing disappointing result from being up there in Vancouver, similar to, the big boy club. So looking at a bounce back game here and a good team. And I know that Colorado is, it's a bit of a long shot to catch them, but to keep pace, you need 3 points. And that's what I expect this club to go out and do come Friday.
Yeah, looking at, obviously Austin FC too, undefeated in their last 7 outings and just 1 loss in the last 12. And that 1 loss, was the 1-0 defeat at Tacoma where questionable penalty call gets Tacoma the goal. And then Austin FC goes down a man late on. So this team has been, I think probably if we just took from June 2nd on that last 12-game sample, I'm not surprised if they are tops in MLS Next Pro, just in that kind of half-season sample size there. But this is a big one up top. And again, a win clinches a playoff spot here for FC2 in their first ever Next Pro season. So, let's go get it, boys.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Hopefully, we have seen evidence that David Rodriguez is back out there training. We don't have any evidence that he's been doing full contact work yet, but maybe we see him make an appearance off the bench. I think it would be pretty surprising to see him come and get a start right away. Maybe Charlie Asensio gets a turn there at left back. We saw him make his first bench appearance in over a month this past Sunday. We'll keep an eye on that backup goalkeeper situation if Eric Lopez is back or maybe Spencer Sanderson gets another nod there. Anything else you're looking for from this FC2 lineup or bench, just in the team in general?
Oh, no. I mean, Asensio, I think should get the start here. I think it's about time for that. But other than that, the AOC Pignot thing seems to be done. It seems to be Pignot from here on out, as it has been for a while. So, yeah, those are the two things for me. And obviously, I want to see Burton on the right. Hopefully, Val is feeling up for scoring a goal because we're going to need some.
Yeah, scoring again after scoring the lone goal
Yeah.
on Sunday. And one thing that we've seen actually over the last couple games is, or I guess just last game, because obviously Val missed at least one of those matches, I think. He missed, was it the San Jose match on the road, right? Because he played in the NYCFC friendly a week and a half ago. But what we saw on Sunday was Val Noel playing out on the right and Micah Burton playing at the 10. So maybe we see that again. I imagine we see EJ on the left with CJ, most likely with the first team. Yeah, man, excited for it. Finally get to watch these guys in person again this coming Friday. One last thing to do here. Score predictions. How much is Austin FC 2 winning by on Friday?
I'm going to go ahead and say 2-1. It's going to be hard to shut this team out, but they give up goals, and we have a stout defense, so I do think we can get the job done there.
Yeah, as much as I hate to do it, I'm also going to go 2-1. This team, they have given up many more goals, obviously. Every team has given up more goals than Austin FC 2. I don't think anybody else is sub 20, while I believe Austin FC 2 is still on 13 given up this season. 14, you're right, 35 for 14 against. I think that number rises to 15, but a 2-1 victory, would get it done here. So respect to what they have done offensively this season, but I think Austin, especially at home, just the better side here and going to prove that on Friday. So again, hope to see everybody out there. 8 p.m. kickoff at the pitch. We're back, baby. Back-to-back weeks, FC2 at home. I know for sure we're going to be out there the next Friday as well, hanging out with our buddy Kevin for his birthday.
Oh shit.
Let's head into the bets here. Not bad. Little Leagues Cup Championship weekend / MLS Week 27 picks. Let's recap real quick. And I know you're up to you've got the buzzer, right? You're ready with the buzzer if we did bad. We need some other sort of sound effect here because Miami -110, that hits. Messi -125, to score, that hits. Montreal +185, Minnesota +265, Houston -115, those all hit. The RSL bet +195, that game got postponed, unfortunately. But Driussi +280 to score, he gets in there. And then the only one that did not hit for us on the week was Austin to win +275. So that is +8.88 units on the week, and just like that, -32.13. We're back where we need to be. That -30 marker in sight once again. So good job by you. Pats on the back all around. And I'll let you start it off. What do we got here in week 28?
I just want to do this. I looked up, some numerology. You familiar?
Okay.
From familiar. Yeah. So, you can get the 111 and people, they got their little shit. 888 can mean great successes are ahead, whether it be in career or relationships. So
nice. Hopefully all the above.
Take that for what it is, baby. It could be a blessing right there. All right. Enough of the spirituality here. Back to the degen stuff.
The units.
We're taking ATX +245 in Dallas for that 1-0 win. Lock it in, give it to me, make it a good weekend, please. I need it.
I love it. And we're gonna stick with our boy here. No odds up yet for these Saturday matches, but Driussi to score on the road. They've been disrespecting him pretty consistently with these odds. So whatever those odds are, Driussi's getting a goal this weekend. So I'm going to lock that in with no odds yet and pass it back to you.
Word. I'm going to a game that features my fight in runes, but unfortunately going against him, no Petrovic here on his way out over there in Chelsea, right?
Yeah, but Petrovic not on either of those teams, but that is notable news.
Oh, God damn it. Oh man, my fight in runes. I'm sorry, runes. I always get them mixed up with the Revs because I call them the runes.
Yeah. They got Tyler Miller out there who, he'll play 40 yards up the field.
And look, he's not Jordy Petrovic. So Jordy Petrovic will not be in this game. I can guarantee you that. Go ahead and lock that in. No, I'm going to go ahead. Philly plus 175 at DC, the superior club. They're coming off that messy butt whooping. But still, they're a great team, and I expect them to bounce back in a big way.
I do as well. I like that pick a lot. I'm going to go to a team who got their game postponed on Sunday in LAFC. They actually play tonight against Colorado Rapids at home, and then they go cross country. So you never like to see that, but they're going cross country to play Charlotte, and we can get LAFC at plus 130. So I like getting LAFC pretty much anytime at plus odds. So I'm going to take LAFC to beat Charlotte on the road at plus 130 for my second pick. What you got next?
I'm trying to figure out. Houston and RSL are playing in Open Cup and in MLS this week.
Yes, I believe you. A lot of those clubs have Open Cup and then MLS games this weekend.
But it's the same matchup.
RSL and Houston, yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, cool. So that should be
except that the weekend one is in RSL, I believe.
Correct, and that could get a little spicy. I like that. That's a little playoff kind of atmosphere there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take RSL minus 130. I don't care what you think about the perfect bet, ZG. I'm not going against my boys up there in Mormontown.
All right, so RSL minus 130. I like that. I'm going to go another team that is playing midweek here, Inter Miami. The word out of Miami is that Messi wants to play every single game. And if Messi wants to play, I think he can overrule basically anybody in that organization. So going to New Jersey to take on the New York Red Bulls here, Inter Miami is plus 145. I'm going to take Messi at his word that he wants to play every match, because if he's in a game, I'm betting on Miami, especially if we're getting them at plus odds. So Miami plus 145 at Red Bulls. Lock it in. Back to you to finish it up.
I think that's been one of the most interesting things about the Messi saga and reign that has begun here, is that this man just fucking loves to play. You know what I mean? Like some dudes, I haven't seen Ronaldo play over there in Saudi Arabia because I'm not even going to dare touch that league ever. I won't ever watch anything that they have. But it's hard to imagine that Ronaldo is playing with the fucking same passion and fire and desire to go out there and get dubs. You can just tell Messi just wants to fucking play soccer because he just fucking loves it so much. So I really appreciated that and enjoyed that, because obviously, he could have been going at 70% and still be doing whatever it is that he's doing. I don't know if he's at a full 100% yet, which is a little scary.
Yep.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go to LA, the new home of Diego Fagundez. Get the Diego bump here, the Galaxy, playing a bad Chicago team, Chicago Fire, LA Galaxy minus 110. Lock it in for Diego.
I love it. The Diego bump for the Galaxy. That's going to be a real thing for sure.
Yeah, that team's bad.
I'm going to close it out here with a hammer bet, E. I'm going to go another team that's playing midweek here in FC Cincinnati, but they're staying at home for both of these games. So NYCFC coming to town, who they got Maxi Morales back. Like, I think they're going to trend upward here through the final third of the season. But FC Cincinnati at home, minus 140. Miazga back from yellow card suspension. That's going to be a nice boost to their defense. So minus 140, I'm going to 2-unit hammer that for Cincy hosting NYCFC. And that wraps up the Week 28 picks. He's got Austin plus 245 at Dallas, Philly plus 175 at DC, RSL minus 130 hosting Houston, and the Galaxy with the Diego bump minus 110 versus Chicago. I've got LAFC plus 130 at Charlotte, Inter Miami plus 145 at Red Bulls, FC Cincinnati minus 140 hosting NYCFC. That's a 2-unit hammer, and Sebastian Driussi to score with no odds yet. Those are the Week 28 picks. And now let's get to our guest. This is by far the most intriguing part of episode 84. Tommy Scoops coming on once again to the North End podcast. Again, going to be no video of Tom's pretty face here, but we'll take the audio only nonetheless. So let's talk to Tom. All right, everybody. We teased it multiple times earlier in the episode. We are extremely excited to be joined once again by our good buddy, Tom Bogert. And we said that he was not going to have any video. But if you're watching on the YouTube, Tommy Scoop's video is active. So, Tom, I really appreciate you making the time again for us, man. How you been?
What's going on, guys? I'm good. Apologies if you hear dog noises in the background. I'm at my parents' house picking up my dog after getting back from the studio. So
Yeah,
that's always good fun, and they're barking now. So it'll be a fun ride, right?
Yeah, definitely don't got to worry about dog noises on this pod.
That's it. Our episodes don't start until there's some sort of dog noise.
That's a special guest.
Yeah. So since we last checked in with you, you joined The Athletic. How's that been going? Because neither of us were Athletic subscribers before then, and we are happily subscribers now. We've been enjoying it, but how's the experience been for you?
That's great to hear. I'm going to relay that message to my editors. I need every single one of those stories just to let them know that just pretend like it was all me. No, it's been incredible, man. Like, I had immense respect for all of these writers. Like, you think of, these were all huge, big names that I was always reading and always looking up to, like Paul Tenorio, Pablo Mar, obviously Jeff, Felipe. I just name everybody, right? Like, they've been everything that I thought they were from afar, and somehow even more. Like, I've done a lot with like Paul in particular over the couple months, and like I always viewed like him and Sam Stejskal as like the gold standard, and like this dude like blows me away. Like, again, like the final product from the outside is insane, is insanely good. And like working with him on things, I'm like, my God, like you're incredible. Like you just see things differently than I do. You like your list of contacts is even deeper than mine. It feels like all of a sudden it's like, damn, man. Like I'm just trying to keep up a little bit. Like I don't know. It feels like the big league, so it's been fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's been cool to watch you guys work and expand that MLS coverage throughout this season. So certainly looking forward to what's to come down the road. And I mean, you guys had a pretty big story in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Gio Savarese got canned yesterday or the day before, whenever that was. And I think you had an article on that this morning or yesterday with Jeff Reuter. We've got a loud contingent of Austin fans who call for Josh Wolff's head pretty much anytime something bad happens for the club. But look, like our stance has kind of been, and even more so as some of these poor results have rolled in over the last month, that if he's going to get canned, like okay, but we don't necessarily think that it should be happening right now, maybe waiting until after the season or even past that, given the new sporting director that's come in. But what is your level of surprise? Like 1 being this was expected and 10 being holy shit, I can't believe it. Like if Josh Wolff was canned before the season was out.
10, honestly, to like, I don't know what would need to happen for that to be a reality. Like, would they need to lose 5-0 on multiple occasions? Like Rodolfo Borrell like came out in his introduction press conference and like the media rightly like asked a couple questions about Josh Wolff, and like he was pretty blunt and direct with, like, of course he was going to say something positive, right? Or at the very worst, no comment. But like he went above and beyond. He's like, I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't rate Josh as a coach. And like it'd be really weird if he was that strong and then like a month later being like, oh, you know what? Like never mind. Like I've seen him up close. So like I'd be absolutely shocked if he was let go before the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's the point that stuck out to me the most, was that Rodolfo like really went out of his way, because of course you're going to get some C-suite executive speech when you're in a press conference like that. But he made the point of saying that one of the main reasons why I came here was for Wolff. And I think what you said there is like, if we keep reeling off 6-3 losses here, maybe it happens. And I could probably understand that, because at that point it sounds like there's some locker room issues, something's going on. But it was good to hear you say that in lockstep there as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that did cause an uproar, for whatever reason, because Josh Wolff is the coach and we do have a new sporting director, was that Diego Fagundez trade. And I believe you were the first pundit to really break that news. Is there anything that you can tell us? Obviously, you can't get into all the nitty gritty, but is there anything you can tell us about what you heard that day? Like maybe to help shed light on how fast that process moved, because Diego, for any Austin fan, is always going to have a special place in our heart as, first goal scorer. He was very ingrained in the community here. So I guess anything you can tell us about how that day, what went down that day, And then what do you think about the trade from an Austin perspective?
I guess I can't say with certainty how long or how quick the talks with the Galaxy were. I had heard rumors through league sources that like Fagundez was very available for most of the summer. So this idea that it came out of nowhere, I don't believe is accurate. But again, I can't speak to how quickly or how slowly talks with the Galaxy came. Look, I mean, the Austin's. I'll set aside my opinion first and just kind of lay out like the rationale as I understand it. That like, look, Fagundez got a very, very good contract for Fagundez this winter because he was awesome last year. Straight up, he hasn't lived up to that contract this season, and like that's inarguable just based on the number and based on production. So this move clears a whole lot of flexibility for Borrell to maneuver, and look, there's an argument that Memo Rodriguez, if he can give you 80% of Fagundez or whatever this year, or again, depending on where the variables were with his form, that's the rationale, and I understand it, and it's going to be very useful in terms of redoing the squad because his salary cap hit was bigger than anybody else. Like obviously, Driussi and the DPs are getting paid more, but they're hitting the roster as a DP at the senior max. Like Fagundez was above that and had to be bought down with allocation money. That's the cold kind of rationalization, and I get that. I don't think I'm like there with it. Like I like this move more for the Galaxy because, yeah, Diego Fagundez is on an expensive contract, but good players cost money. You know what I mean? And for a team that plays with Driussi as he's a 9.5, he's more of a second forward than a 10. Fagundez fit in really well because he could be a primary chance creator, a primary assist maker. And again, I'll say it again, I don't want to be slamming like Austin too much for this. Like he wasn't that this season. He was not playing well enough. But for me, like I don't really always. It depends on what the degree is of I guess the contract versus the production. But like yeah, like he was an expensive player because he was very good. And if he plays like he did in 2022, then he's worth it. And if he plays like he did this year, he's not quite worth it. But I don't think that he was some like albatross of a contract, like the Galaxy with Douglas Costa. Like if his contract wasn't up at the end of the season, like I would have been surprised if they didn't buy him out. Like other teams that have had to use a buyout, like just because a player isn't at value, like overperforming his contract, doesn't mean he's not a useful player, not a good player to have.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we broke it down and we went really in depth with how much money it actually opened up for Borrell here, one of the ways that we felt like we needed to exercise patience on this trade was, okay, who we getting now?
Absolutely.
How are we using this money? So, holding out. And I mean, this kind of leads into Zach's next question pretty well with Rodo and how we want him to spend this money. And I'll pass it over to him here.
Well, so Ian mentioned like we did a deep dive episode as to the best of our ability, with no public accounting of allocation money available.
Good luck. Absolute sicko behavior. I love it so much. Go on.
Get you access to this document. We got to give him. You need access to the secret doc.
What we've calculated was if they declined every option that we have that we know about, that they would come up with about 4.8 million in space, be it allocation money, either style, and cap space. So even if you get close to 4.8 million, whatever it is, I guess two-part question: is Rodolfo Borrell the highest profile sporting director in MLS, and do you think he can utilize his what you would think is a global network to greatly improve this roster in the offseason?
That's an interesting question. I haven't thought of it like that. So, like, obviously, like, I guess he is. It depends on what audience you're thinking about, because obviously, like, people who have been following MLS for a long time know Garth Lager way better than just about anybody. They know Ernst Tanner by this point. They know John Thornton by this point. But, reputation preceding itself with Rodo being an assistant to Pep Guardiola, like, I think you're right. He probably comes in with, like, the biggest name or the biggest kind of, like, name recognition for fans, just because of like being on Pep's staff and like well earned. So yeah, like that is interesting, and absolutely, I think that's one of the reasons why he was hired. Like he hasn't really like done this job before, which isn't to say that he can't. Obviously, I want to be careful, but like that obviously talent identification, that ability to kind of like Pep set everything at City Football Group of Manchester City. So now Rodolfo being able to do that here, and plus the global connections, like he's got to be like there can't be a corner of the world that he doesn't have an in at, right? And like that helps so much with identification, that helps so much with deal making, that helps so much with furthering options and expanding your net. So yeah, like I think that should be kind of a big expectation for this hire. Again, like you don't have City Football Group behind you, but you have somebody who's been in City Football Group for a long time. So that's one way to kind of not circumvent, like that's one way to get a very, very quickly increase your scouting range and increase your like database by just making one hire.
Yeah, and based off the roster build that Claudio left us with, we are kind of coming around to the idea that Claudio wasn't maybe doing the best job.
Wait, do you mean that using the same Paraguayan agent for 5 players that wasn't the best way to?
Dude, Diego Cerati is like the devil when it comes to Austin FC. Like the fact that we still have Rodney Redis and Johan Romagna on the books is
I
wild.
Can't believe that Rigoni isn't represented by this guy. I'm just shocked.
Man, and if they can somehow get Rigoni off the books and have 2 full DP spots, not go like I think Ian and I are kind of out on the U22 thing right now. Just looking at what some of these other teams do with 3 full DPs. Obviously, we're a little jaded with how our 3 U22s have worked out so far. But anyways, one last Austin question before I know E wants to talk a little bit about Messi Mania and all that. What have you seen from Austin this year that concerns you? And then I guess on the flip side, what encourages you, if anything?
I guess I'll go negative first. That look, it became like a tired argument or a tired point to make, but like the whole regression to the expected goals. But like part of that was real. Obviously, look, I don't think that they are, I guess, necessarily as bad as they've shown at times. Like losing 6-3 to St. Louis. I don't think that's a good representation of them. But again, any small game sample size, anything can happen. So. It's a lot of the same things for the first 3 years of this club. It's the defensive transitions and some of like the lack of defensive quality. Like Gabrielson, like I think we all knew how good he was last year and how difficult he'd be to replace. But like in practice, it's been really difficult to replace, and the team is a lot different without him. So yeah, that's kind of the big worry. And again, I don't think that's anything new. Like they tried to sign Johan Valencia before last season, and thankfully for the group, like Danny Pereira took this huge step forward. But like Valencia was like a $2.5 million like key big signing. He was supposed to be like a really good answer in the defensive midfield that was supposed to help with those defensive issues, and he hasn't panned out. So you gotta, again, like that's part of the reason, like not Johan Valencia specific, but Matt Hedges comes in because all right, we need a veteran MLS defender, and thankfully for the group that Danny Pereira has been in such an awesome draft. Like that was one of the best things that Claudio Reyna did identify, because he wasn't a clear number 1 pick. There wasn't like a no brainer, this is who you pick. So that was really good. On the positive side, they have a lot of the same pieces that they did from last year's team. Like Triusi is still special. Like Zardes still, like I think he fits in well, and like I thought this signing was going to go much better, much quicker. Yeah. But I guess sometimes these things take time, and like the development of Owen Wolff has been very good. Again, Danny Pereira, like I could talk about him for a long time. Like I think he's such a good player. If Matt Hedges comes in and over a run of games stabilizes the defense, that's kind of the make or break for the playoff line. So like they still have a lot of these same ingredients. And again, like Josh Wolf's game model is his game model. Like there's nothing new that they need to adapt to here. So like there is a realistic scenario that you're not just like crazy hoping for, that this team rattles off a bunch of wins, and the home atmosphere, anytime they're playing at home, they should be leaning into that to that fortress or whatever, right? Like, so I don't know. There are like a lot of things to like about the possibility for this team. It's been inconsistent this year. Yeah,
it hasn't been executed to the point that we need it to be. Transitioning a little bit here, what letter grade would you give Leagues Cup?
Oh man, an A. Honestly, I was excited about it. A little dubious, to be fair, to not just be full blown optimism, but I figured that because both leagues took a break from the league schedule, that both leagues were going to take it super seriously. Mm-hmm. And they did. And the games are so fun. The lowlights include the like Liga MX versus Liga MX games at MLS stadiums that had, 48 people there. So maybe that's something you tinker with in the future. I really loved going straight to penalties after 90 minutes. I don't think that you should do that in the playoffs, but in a tournament like this, I am so very glad that they didn't go through the process of extra time. The games were wild. It was really good to watch up close. The Liga MX teams outside of the CONCACAF Champions League, like, you're used to watching Tigres and Monterrey, and they are so much fun to watch. But, Toluca was a team I didn't know a whole lot about. I was like, oh my God, these guys are good. So it's just like discovering new players and new stories and getting to know some of these Liga MX teams better. I thought it was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast. Zach loved it.
You guys liked it?
Oh, it way exceeded my expectations. I couldn't give it an A. I couldn't give it an A solely because there weren't any games at the Mexican club home field, and because of that reason where we're having two Liga MX teams playing in an MLS stadium to basically nobody. So that was the only reason I couldn't give it an A. I
understand with that, but like this wasn't like MLS executives being like, all the games have to be here. Like what we want from Liga MX is what MLS, like the trade-off here is the Mexican American, like the Liga MX is the most popular soccer league in this country.
Yeah.
So they wanted the games to be here too, so that the American Club America fans could come to these stadiums and be accessible to these games. The American Monterrey fans, or again, when Monterrey played Tigres, it was in Houston, right? Like a 4-hour drive or 3-hour drive, whatever, however far it is from the city. Like this wasn't like a ploy to make MLS teams more competitive. Like this was part of the concoction of the tournament, and whether that's revisited in the future is certainly on the table. I bet. Like I'm sure that they're going to come together on a lot of these things. But like I was with Tata Martino on this. He's like, you guys agreed to this. Like, and again, I would take it a step further and say, not only did you agree to this, you wanted this. It wasn't like a concession. Fine. Like this was part of like the fundamentals of this tournament. Like so. Again, like it's fair to say, like, yeah, they didn't play in Monterrey, they didn't play in Mexico City. Well, like, yeah, that was by design. So, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I get that. I think I was looking at it from the player standpoint of like obviously wanting to go out there and win it, and you would be in a much more advantageous position. If you're at home. Yeah,
but blame the executives and like not the whatever.
Hey, I have no problem blaming the executives.
Well, and we clearly got an up close and personal look at two of those lesser known, less popular Mexican sides with Mazatlan and Juarez coming in and beating our butts.
The Ake Loba show was fun, huh?
Oh man, that, and then the I don't know if you remember the free kick that Austin let in that was just a dribbler. Oh my God, we had no idea what was happening in that one. But the fact that we still tuned in, even when our team was out, to as many games as possible, I think
there you go.
Another kind of hat tip. And part of that is that we're just sickos. But on the other hand, like there were a lot of Austin fans that were still paying close attention to the tournament, so it was cool. I know you had more questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to get the letter grade there to see where we fell on the scale.
For reference, E had the B. I had an A on our episode on Sunday. So.
All right, so me and you win.
Yes.
I get 2-1. Okay. So with Leagues Cup, obviously we saw the winner. Is this Messi's league for the next 2.5 years?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, even for his own standards, he overperformed. Like Elliot McKinley put out. Like the likelihood of all of those goals going, like his finishing for about the greatest finisher of all time, right? Even for his own standards, it was unreal. Like that goal against Philly should have done better by Andre Blake, but like that was his longest goal in I forget how many years, like 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I really had a stat in an article, I forget. But still, it's just like he was even doing things that were uncharacteristic for him, which is like he's an alien, right? Like so, it's just incredible. I thought, earlier in the tournament, you could be like, well, they played at home the whole time, or well, Atlanta and Cruz Azul weren't very good, and well, they got lucky that their bracket had Charlotte and Dallas instead of Monterrey and Tigres and even Real Salt Lake, right? Like so, and then the further along in the tournament you got, it's like, all right, well, they did go score 4 goals on the road at Dallas. Oh, okay, now they're playing at Philly, and oh my God, they're winning 3-0 after 20 minutes, and okay, like now they're going to Nashville for a final, like that can't like. Nashville won't overthink it the way that Philly overthunk it, and then like that was a phenomenally fun game, and it's just like, oh my God, like this went from the worst team in the league to just about the best team in the league, right? Because of Lionel Messi, and give Phil Neville credit for some of the structure he set up before he was let go, and he's said on podcasts, he's like, oh, look, the results weren't good enough. Yeah, I should have been fired. But a ton of credit to Chris Henderson for setting up the bones of this roster to maximize the addition of Messi and Busquets and the ways that they were able to fill in the gaps around that. It's just really a masterclass in squad building. Like you can't replicate signing Lionel Messi, but you can replicate, okay, we're not going to re-sign Pozuelo and we're going to trade away Bryce Duke because we need those assets elsewhere on the field because if we have Messi, we don't need that. And then players like Gregory and Jean Mata, Dixon Arroyo, who they had to sign late, like these are all players who fit in well around Messi and friends. Very, very well done by Chris Henderson in the front office.
Absolutely.
I will say I still don't understand the $1 million+ in GAM that you also get alongside Kamal Miller, but it is what it is.
I don't either. Okay. No clue.
Last thing we got for you here, Tom. Some unsubstantiated rumors on Twitter over the last week or two about both a cap spike and a potential additional designated player spot being added this offseason. Jim Curtin talked a little bit about how he think that could maybe happen. Do you think it's possible that the league moves that quickly to capitalize on Messi's arrival by doing either one or both of, raising the cap in a dramatic way or adding a fourth DP this offseason?
I will say maybe don't believe every single goddamn thing you read on the internet.
Yeah.
no, don't worry, that wasn't at you, but this is a frustration I get all the time. Or like the amount of group chats I'm in that like some of these people who are like, they see a tweet, something on Twitter, it's like, oh my God, and then send it to me, like, dude, like, can you just wait until Tenorio reports it, or somebody that you like, just because an anonymous account said something doesn't mean it's true. Like, I had either an agent or somebody at another club text me like that too, and I was like, are you really wasting my time with this? And look, so there is at the Board of Governors meeting at All-Star a month ago, everybody I talked to said that there weren't specifics brought up yet, that Jorge Mas wants and other ambitious owners want there to be less restrictions. There was no plans even discussed, let alone decided. So that there could not possibly, unless that there's a shadow 3 or 4 people that somehow controls everything that decided in a back room and didn't tell anybody. Like, all of these conversations are fluid. I don't know how quickly changes and like how dramatic changes will be. A lot of people I talk to are pretty optimistic that something will happen, and again, whether it's minor or a little bit more substantial. But I will say a lot of the people who are coming, like, it doesn't really behoove many people to come out and be like, well, actually the roster rules are good, I don't want to spend any more money. So if you have that opinion, you're not saying it out loud very much, right? Like, so that's why it was interesting that Jim Curtin and Ali Bedoya, the head coach and captain of a team that absolutely would not be benefiting from spending more money, because they're already one of like the lower like first team roster spends. They spend it in other ways, and they have a different structure, the different philosophy and ideas, and that's all fine. But it's not like if they had, oh, cool, we're going to go put a $10 million transfer out there. So I thought it was noteworthy, particularly because of what team that was saying that. And these are two people, like Curtin just signed a new long-term contract, and Bedoya wants to play there until he retires, right? These are people that are going to still be at the club. I think that's very interesting. Again, we'll see. I'm talking a lot, not saying much at the moment, because it's very difficult to figure out. Like, these are difficult discussions and difficult way. Like, there's reasons why things have been slow in the past, because if they weren't like this, the league would have folded in 2002 or 2005 and 2008, right? Like, it's in part the financial viability of this league is because of these rules. So usually I'd imagine that they're going to like lean towards like, all right, like not changing too crazy. Like, you're really going to consider this. And again, like, I think in earnest, like, these will start to be, discussed and hopefully to a point where things can be voted on in the winter. But like, I don't think that we're going to know much more until then.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. And I think that when Curtin talked about it, and I had forgotten that Ali Bedoya also had mentioned that in that same presser.
Ali started, I was part of that. Ali started his response with, oh my God, you guys are trying to get me in trouble.
Yeah. And I understand that certainly if you have any relation to the league or a club within the league, that's something you have to tiptoe around. But yeah, I mean, it feels like to us, again, as relatively new soccer fans, MLS fans, that something has to be done to capitalize on this 2.5-year window, but we're just very unsure on, again, the moves that can be made to keep that trajectory that the league has worked so hard on over the last decade plus. And
the parity. And then, sorry to cut you off, but like, I was talking to a GM who was like, yeah, like the reason why I came to this league instead of pursuing a different place is because I love the parity. Like, this is, and like the fight, like there is an argument for, like, again, I still think that there's room between where you can raise the salary cap and also keep the parity, but like that's something that they're trying to be careful to keep. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, and I think that was pretty much my point. Is like I don't think they should immediately scrap everything that they've worked so hard to build, because the parity is something that has kept us interested in this league outside of the team that's right in our backyard. And I think keeps the league exciting and can really grow the sport. Because like one thing that Ian has pointed out multiple times, whether it's to me in person or here on the pod, is you look at the Power 5 leagues, right? A lot of those leagues have the same champion year in and year out. And I just like, American sports fans can certainly get down with a dynasty from now and again, but like, I don't think that's really what keeps this league viable in the growth that we've seen to catch up to the main 4 sports here in the United States.
Yeah, and look, I can see it both ways, and like let it be a meritocracy, and like again, like look at Philly's a great example. The biggest correlation between league standing across the world in soccer is the wage bill. Like standings and wage bill are like the two things that correlate most. Like, and Philadelphia Union should not be where they are, and it's been, but because of phenomenal acquisitions and talent identification from the front office, tremendous development, man management, and tactics from the coach, and a lot of players who fit perfectly into his system. They've been overperforming what their budget says they should for several years. Now, if this was Europe, right? Like, I think of that Monaco team when that Kylian Mbappe came through, and it was Fabinho and Tchouaméni. I think he was a little bit later. But Thomas Lemar, they were awesome for a season. That summer rather, Mbappe, Lemar, Fabinho, all of them were gone. So Philadelphia would have had that really fun, great run. And then Miami and LAFC and the LA Galaxy would have bought their 3-4 best players, right? Don't want that. I want it to be more like this. And if you want to watch a league like that, and if you want to if there's more quality in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, and Serie A, and the Champions League than there is here, obvious fact. If you want to watch a league that tries to do that, you'd watch those leagues. If you wanted to watch a youth development league and just for youth development, you'd watch the Argentine league or the Dutch league or the Belgian league. MLS has to bring something different to the table. And that's, again, the quality coming up with the youth development and the better signings that they've made, the parity, the entertainment and how wide open these games are. And again, there still being some big names that draw you to these games. I think that if you lean in too heavy in one direction for any of those, you just become a facsimile of another league that does it better.
Well said.
I love that explanation. We'll get you out of here, Tom. We really appreciate the time, the second time this year. You got one more thing?
We just got to get him on record for some Knicks props here.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Right,
Fire him.
RJ Barrett over. I don't care what you're saying. RJ Barrett over. Go on.
All right. Over under 1.5 playoff series wins.
Oh.
1.5. So over means conference final?
Correct.
Okay.
I can't be that delusional. I have to say under.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to talk myself into it. I sat and looked and thought of what scenario would have to happen. I was like, there's way too many ifs here for me to say.
It can't be a half playoff series win, right?
More than the one game against the Heat this year.
They beat the shit out of Cleveland.
Yeah, they did. Somebody on this screen had Cleveland in 5, and their names weren't Tom or Ian. Shows what I know about basketball. Any other Knicks props for Tom E?
Nah, that was all I had. I guess it was a stupid fucking question.
Well, hey, maybe next time Tom comes back, if he graces us with his presence again, we'll be
when the Knicks are 6-13 because Jalen Brunson got hurt, refusing to come on.
I don't think I told you this last time you were on, but I got a puppy last August, and I'm a Spurs fan, and I named him Wembanyama, and look what happened. So I'm super excited.
Thank God. That would have been tough if not.
Yeah,
look at that. That's like getting a tattoo. That's smart. I'm glad it worked out for you.
I was going to call his dog Scoot for the rest of its life.
It's a good dog name.
Yeah.
Well, and last time you were here, we had you predict our best ball league outcome, and obviously we're not done yet. But your pick was Moon Tower Soccer, and Moon Tower Soccer is in first. So I want you to make one more prediction. We're in second. We're on their ass, but one more prediction for the Austin FC fans here. Is Austin FC making the playoffs this year?
I'm going to say yes. It's going to be a bloodbath in the West for those last 4 playoff spots and first 2 out. But I'll say yes because I just believe in Driussi too much.
Yeah, it's our first real playoff fight here. And the way the West is, unless we, lose 3 games or win 3 games in a row, they're going to be
going down the wire.
Yeah. It's going to be fun, man. Excited for it. Tom, thanks again. Tell the people where they can find you. Obviously, most people, I think, already following your work, but just in case this is their first dose of Tommy Scoops, let the people know what you got going on, man.
Yeah, Twitter at Tom Bogert. You can follow my work on The Athletic. Click, read, even if you don't read. Clicks are nice. And then Apple TV. I'm on Extra Time, and then whenever the hell they ask me to go to the studio, I do whatever. So.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Tom, really appreciate it once again, and hopefully we'll have you back again.
Yeah, guys, of course. I always got time for you. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.
See ya.
Man, Tom Bogert is cool as shit. That's all I have to say, man. The fact that he makes time. I mean, dude was messaging me like, hey, I've just got done with Extra Time. I got to catch the train to my parents' house. I'll squeeze you guys in there. And like, it's just awesome that he makes time for fans like us, because you see him going on other, like I saw a Toronto podcast he was on a couple weeks ago. I think a Columbus Crew pod. Like, it's just awesome that he engages with the fans of his work and this league in the way that he does. Like, I don't have many other things to say about it other than it's super cool and generous.
Yeah, no, you can just tell it exudes how much he loves this league. And like, we're talking to him there and he's like, oh, this GM is wasting my time with some bogus. It's like, dang, man, he found time for us. Yeah. Shout out Tommy Scoops, man. Always a pleasure. What a dude. What a guy.
Yeah. Awesome to have him. Hopefully he comes back. We didn't scare him off with our Knicks props or anything like that. Well, you got to come up with some better props, bro.
You came up with 0.
Yeah, you're right. You're
prop guy.
You're right.
This is why
I'll do better. I'll do better next time. And that's going to wrap up episode 84 here of the North End podcast. We want to thank Tom Bogert once again, and thank you for tuning in. And if you've got 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button to help us grow the podcast. And you can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the thumbs up button, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the generosity of Tommy Scoops. We will be back on Sunday recapping Austin FC's Copa Tejas clash with FC Dallas, recapping Austin FC 2's matchup with Sporting KC2, and everything else in between. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully we see you up in Frisco on Saturday, and we'll see you back here on Sunday for episode 85. Until then, he's E. I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.